want you to think for a second. This is a question for you about your own life. What do you want the desired outcome of your relationships to be? Now, you do not have to make this a romantic conversation. It doesn't have to be an intimate conversation. These could be client relationships, parent relationships, friend relationships. But there's a very good chance you're likely going to apply this information to your personal romantic relationships more than anything else. Let's riff on the topic of compromise. Ra talks about how compromise is ultimately the biggest relationship killer. But he lays compromise out in a very specific kind of way. An example here would be you have two people, they're not getting along, they go to some type of therapy or mediation, and the person says, you do this thing, I don't like it, you need to change. And the other person over here goes, well, you do this thing, I don't like it, you need to change. And what ends up happening is it becomes this version of you change and I'll change, and we'll both be a little bit less ourselves in a way that appeases some type of truly not self-desire in the other. Now I want you to think for a minute, whenever you are trying to influence, control, dictate somebody else's behavior, why do we do that? Where does it come from? What's the goal? If I think about historical times in relationships where I would have acted to control my partner's behavior, expression, decisions in any kind of way, why would I do that? I know that from experience, I've done that historically when I've been afraid of something. Maybe I have financial fears, so I try and control how my partner has their relationship with money. Maybe I have intimate fears, so I try and control how my person interacts with other people or how they have other relationships outside of our relationship. The point is, control comes into relationships when there is some type of lack of trust. So when we have a lack of trust in our relationships, there is this want to control everything for some form of security. But the idea that things can be controlled or that people can or should be controlled goes directly against human design. Whenever I think control, lack of trust, fear, I think these are not necessarily the things that fulfill a relationship. It's been really important for me to contrast the difference between what I wanted out of my relationships pre-human design and what I want out of my relationships at this point. I have acknowledged before, my friend Caitlin, the 3-5 pure MG, she has a marriage, a long-term marriage with another pure individual, an emoting projector, and their relationship is so inspiring. Their relationship is inspiring to me because of the level of autonomy that both people are able to maintain within the relationship. It's very clear to me that these are people who are in partnership, they respect each other, they admire each other, they love each other, but they don't overly try to influence or control each other. It is so admirable to see two people come together who love themselves, respect themselves, and are able to extend that to the person they're in partnership with, and it's reciprocal. I recognize that historically my relationships had really high levels of codependency in a way that I was taught was a really good and healthy thing. But I recognize the difference now between this like compromised codependency, controlling, like till death do us part because that's the bargain. Like there's that. That's the culturally conditioned narrative. It's an older narrative, but it's still pretty strong. I had a false belief that I was gonna leave that narrative behind and I was gonna enter into human design, and it was gonna give me a way to be able to find a perfect relationship. But like, what did I mean by perfect? You know, I'm gonna find the perfect, you know, what does Ra say is perfect? It's like, it's gonna be a perfect type for type relationship, and it's gonna be a perfect I sleep alone relationship. And it's going to be perfect in that I'm naturally in the right environment, and it's going to be perfect in that it never goes against my authority. No, they're never going to pull me into transference. I had this uneducated belief that through human design, it would help me find the even more perfect relationship where both of us would be like our most perfect true selves. And we'd kind of like rise above this not self. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. One of the things that I want to acknowledge is that Ra was not in a type for type relationship. Ra was married to a sacral being. He had his own room, he had his own wing of the house, he says. But Ra himself did not end up in a same type or same authority relationship. Ra himself says that he would go out to eat or eat with the family a few times a week, even though it was against his determination. Ra talks about really having this conscious awareness throughout the experiment. It's not about always making the, because you can't. That's a mental way of trying to control the experiment again. It doesn't work. The not self is so sneaky. What makes a good relationship? What's the desired outcome of a relationship? For me, right now, at this point, what is my desired outcome for a relationship? An accountability buddy. A deconditioning sparring partner. I want someone who lives their correct life. But I want you to hear me when I change the definition of the word correct, because we use this word in human design all the time. The correct authority, the correct environment, the right one, which implies that there's an incorrect one and a wrong one. And that's pretty accurate because there's true self and there's not self. But the idea that anybody is always true and always correct, it doesn't exist. It's a pipe dream. Now, this is not me being like, be not self, it's totally cool. That's not what I'm saying either. This is not an encouragement of not self. This is like, it's not like saying, you know, screw the authority, it doesn't matter. That's not what we're saying at all. It's not what I'm saying at all. Part of being in aware partnership is being able to recognize nobody stays not self, nobody stays true self. Every day we're going in and out of both of these according to our authority, according to our experience, according to our awareness. There is nobody that is suddenly the perfect deconditioned version of themselves. It doesn't happen. What you can hope for at best is to be in relationship with someone, to be in communion with someone who can understand what you are and can let you be that thing without trying to control you, without forcing you to compromise in a way that is attempting to change your true nature because it is somebody else's conditioned preference. Human design can make relationships absolutely phenomenal because the quality of them changes so drastically. I feel very much that another way to say being in a correct relationship is a way of saying being in a comfortable relationship. It's a way of saying being in a natural relationship. If you think that eventually this system will help you get a relationship that is perfect, where you're only in your signature, where you feel great all the time, no. And yet, you know, the kicker here, I'm selling human design. This isn't my way of being like, it can make your relationship so perfect when you, Human design gives you the awareness of what you are and what you're not, so you can just be what you are, you can love what you are, you can respect what you are, you can live out what you are, and because you can do that for yourself, you can do that in your relationships to and for other people. My relationships right now are shockingly harmonious, and in particular with people that are not interested in human design. My relationships are really great right now when I know somebody's definition. I don't need them to know their definition. When I know someone's definition and I treat them according to their mechanics, I can respect what they are. My relationships are so smooth. What I love about the Aware Partnership lecture is it's one of the only lectures I've ever heard from Ra where you actually feel hopeful for all relationships. Honestly, you're like, whoa, this could happen. People could pull this off and it could feel really good, really good. Because you can finally be in communion as yourself. You know, my approach to relationships right now means that I have to carry and maintain a high level of personal responsibility. I know what I am. I know what my gifts are. I know what my limitations are. And I know what can and can't be changed about me in relationships. I'm not entering into relationships under false expectations or false bargains where I've agreed to try and show up in a way that isn't something I'm capable of. I used to say in human design years ago that with human design you could be in relationship with anybody because it would tell you more than anything else how to respect each other. And that is the core of a quality relationship. Can you respect each other? If you don't have respect, you don't have a relationship. Human design can show you what someone is and what they're not so that you don't have to try and push them one way or the other. You can just accept them. Through that awareness, through that kind of respect and love and acceptance, pretty much anybody can get into relationship. The last thing I want to leave on is a note about authority in relationships. A lot of the times people are wondering, do I get into the relationship? Do I end the relationship? Like they're waiting for some type of decision that is going to let them know like the length of time, the duration of the relationship. There is an expectation that when our authority says yes or no to something, that's like an indefinite answer. You can be in a relationship and have a no for a moment, a situation, an experience, and that might not be a no for the whole relationship. As a splenic person, I can have a no to a partner and 10 minutes later that feeling isn't there anymore and it feels safe to be with that partner again. It feels healthy to be with that partner again. You have to be very, very careful that you don't attach a whole bunch of mental narratives to what your authority says is right or wrong for you. If it says yes, then it's a yes. And if it says no, then it's a no. A lot of the times when you're trying to deal with your authority in the beginning, you're looking for kind of any signal that you can trust that your authority has given you a yes or a no for something. I want to acknowledge that just because something feels uncomfortable or a little bit scary or makes you nervous or makes you anxious or feels hard, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong or that your authority has said no. There are so many things that are truly actually healthy for us to get through in this lifetime that are still incredibly uncomfortable. Truth and confrontation is one of them. I feel like I was all over the map, and yet I also feel like I hit the most important points. I am sure y'all have some questions and opinions and comments. I love hearing things about relationships, but I also know that that's a very personal thing to share. So if you're open to sharing anything that feels personally relatable to you about what I just talked about, I'd love to hear about it. Leave it in the comments below or reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM. I love to get voice notes. I guess I'll catch you next time.